mean,
not the right
that
way to
should-
explain this to a student. If I were to ask them this question, what would be the least amount of barrier for them to understand it?
It's confusing, yes.
So if Dr. Browning were to read that, she always came with and restated it as how many 1/3 are in one whole. So I mean, yes,
I would say whole.
you don't wanna completely white out that statement, cause they're gonna have to read it like that. But then she always came back and said, okay, 1/3, or how many 1/3 are in one whole. So you,
It's the Gazinta,
yeah.
like my teacher told me Gazinta, I have to know my Gazintas. When he goes into, he's a little redneck teacher, yes ma'am.
I had a Gazintu issue when I was in my master's program and I was taking, I can't remember, but I had a tutor from the math class that I was in and she kept saying, Y sub something, and I didn't understand what she was saying, and I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, oh, Y subscript. Because I was like, what, I have no idea what she.
And that brings up the importance of vocabulary and language.
I actually thought she was saying Y sub M. I was like, what?
W-H-Y.
Y sub,
W-H-Y,
Y
yes.
sub M, and she was like, no.
So vocabulary is extremely important. So mathematical language is extremely important. Lori?
When I was showing this with my 6th grade kids, we were working on some of the division, they had trouble understanding that the 1/3 were all the same size.
And that's a great point. Thank you, Lori.
They would take the circle and divide it into 3 parts, and not like
Would
the
you like to draw an
Mercedes.
example of how they would divide it? This is crucial, and this is something that many teachers forget to reiterate, repeatedly. That's redundant. They forget to remind the students that in fractions, the parts have to be equal.
But,
If you have 1/2, each of those 2 halves have to be the same size. Yes,
but
ma'am.
even in division, you're still making equal groups.
Absolutely. Yes,
So-
yes, you are. So, tell me, are these equal, or each of these 1/3 of that cookie, pizza, pie, whatever? Candace, are they?
No,
Why not?
because if I had that circle and I had it on a piece of paper and cut those pieces apart and stacked them on top of each other, they would not be the same size.
Very nicely said, maybe not be.
And I would want this word.
Yeah. Is that what you did with your class, Lauren?
This is what
So,
we did.
Yeah,
This is a 6th grade
How
class.
did you,
I
correct
had
that misconception?
so many of them do this, and I said, so you divided it into 3 parts, and they said, yes.
I think
And
the
I said,
question is what
I know.
manipulative are you using?
well, no, we were cutting.
Paper.
So I said, are they equal? And they said, does it have to be? And
And I
we,
know you said something great, so.
well, no, I mean, we went back to what is the fraction, 1 out of 3, and they said this is 1 out of 3. And I said, but when you are looking at the whole, how many parts, and they have to be equal parts. Why? And we explored that for a little while until they were really convinced it had to be equal.
So when do fractions begin in the teens? Tell me, math people?
Fractions, which fractions?
Just the word fractions.
Probably kinder.
I'm not asking you.
We don't want them guesses, we want to know exactly
When
what
is-
grade level.
When are fractions first mentioned in the math text?
My kids are like 6th grade.
Second?
Second grade? Amanda?
I have a 1st grader going in 2nd. They do parts of a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They introduced
First.
3rd grade, it says
Third grade.
3 represent fractions greater than 0 and less than blah, 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 blah. It doesn't show up until 3rd.
So we got 3rd grade, we got 2nd grade.
What'd you put in?
I put in the word fraction.
Oh, I put in the word fraction.
What grade?
Second.
Yeah.
It says 2
Oh,
decimal
sorry.
3.
Okay, you add an S and account 3rd grade, so fraction was the 2nd, yeah.
Partition objects into equal parts and name the parts, including halves, fourths, eighths, using words.
That's 3rd or
Second.
2nd? It's not mentioned in kinder or 1st?
Well, not the exact word fraction.
not the word fraction? Is the concept of fraction in kinder or first?
Yeah,
Maybe math people should be looking it up, science people probably. You can use your phone.
First,
Dan, turn my phone on.
part.
Yeah, part of those.
Parts of the whole in first?
Mm-hmm.
Those are fractions, by the way. Kinder? Parts of the whole, what was the number?
One, 1.6H, the student is expected to identify examples and non-examples of halves and fourths.
In what grade?
First.
First grade.
Or it says to partition two-dimensional figures into 2 or 4 fair shares or equal parts, and describe the parts using words.
First grade?
First grade.
So first grade, they need to start planting, the teachers I'm talking about, need to start planting those, understandings that these parts have to be equivalent. They have to be the same value, the same size, right? First grade. So there we go back to that vertical alignment, talking to the teachers, grade 1 up, about the vocabulary to use with this, okay?
In the site, if you're new, there's an app called Teaks. It's a yellow
Yeah.
background with a black Texas in it.
Yeah.
If you don't have it yet.
Mastery Connect.
I think though too, with using the circle, the kids get are most confused with the circle. With squares, rectangles, you know, we're drawing lines down, and they wanna think that they can draw lines down like they did there for a circle.
Oh, I see, yeah,
And it's just, you know, the
yeah, that makes sense.
drawing lines.
That makes sense. So we need to roll on so we can get to the manipulatives. What if we said, listening, how many groups of 1/3 are needed to make one whole? How many groups of 1/3 are needed to make one whole? Would that help the students understand? Yes, that's very mathematically stated. Okay? So let's illustrate this with your pattern blocks. How could you illustrate what, I think it was Ashley drew up here. How could you illustrate that with your pattern blocks?
And she's gonna be second next year.
Maybe. I'm still, maybe, for junior high.
I'm sorry, what other code?
Well, if she's not in sixth grade, or whatever. We're all in grade two.
She and I work as a math, you're gonna be at your work.
And that's
Okay, so we're illustrating how many 1/3.
Alright, tell me, what can we do? Okay.
Okay, so,
I know they read this thing first.
In the 5th grade, we have the circles, fraction bars, circle fractions.
who just left? Right back in this, so I can do it later. Maria, what did you use to illustrate each 1/3? That is a hexagon.
Yes. There you go. And then
Could
it
you
was
hold that up for the class to see? This is how she illustrated hers. Tell us what it illustrates.
the whole, and then 3 for 1/3. So I broke up one whole into thirds.
Is that a legitimate illustration?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So Tim, how did y'all do it?
But it-
Your group.
we use the hexagon as one whole.
Yeah.
We use the parallelogram,
Which parallelogram?
the blue one, the blue parallelogram. For our 1/3.
Or the 1/3.
Calling it a dime.
So either one would work. Either one would work. Most of you did use the hexagon as one whole because that's what I had written up here. But if the kid did not see this and did it the way she did it, she's still correct. Yes, ma'am.
I used trapezoid as the whole, and then the triangles makes thirds, so there's 3 triangles. So
Does that really work? She used the red trapezoid as the whole,
Yes,
and then the green triangles as the thirds.
yes,
Work?
it does,
they're the same
because
size.
it's the way I did it first.
The entire blocks are always the same size. Alright, let's illustrate it with your Cuisinart rods.
Put it in there.
I want you to use the blue rod as the whole.
Blue rod is the first.
Blue rod as the whole.
I will get that question. I'm not taking it. Who's going to put it in?
I have the cheat sheet up here, but it's really small. I appreciate you being clean, but you're gonna need to get it. Blue rod as the whole. So you got a tutor. She is your tutor.
No, Jennifer Shine wants that. Don't mix it up. Doesn't make you're doing math. I love math. She should let her count. Okay, I'll ask. I'll tell her to. Math is not 10. Well, huh? Yeah, well, that's one thing she was working with.
Okay, so if we use the blue rod for the whole, we use the blue rod for the whole, which rod was the, one that could fit in that 3 times? Which green? There's a dark and a.
The light color green.
The light green, very nice. Okay, so this is just getting you used to pattern watching with their rods before we do those questions here that are really fun. Okay, so don't bother putting up the pattern blocks, you're gonna be getting them right back out. The whole rest of the morning. Okay, how many groups of 1/3 are needed to make 2/3? Can you model that with your Cuisinart rods and your pattern blocks?
No, on your Cuisinart,
Notice we're using the same one hole.
Are you using the same rod?
For the hole. For the hole then. This is your hole.
Can you, find out, Tracy can find out who the Cuisinart. So it need to be this size. Can you?
Okay, we come back together. Okay, back together. Pam, can you explain the problem?
Sorry, I was just going, what? Sorry.
So,
How many groups of 1/3 are needed to make 2/3?
so we came up with 2 groups of 1/3 will make 2/3.
Very nice. Anybody get something different? 2 groups of 1/3 will make 2/3. Still working on that language, the group thing, okay? Why do you think I chose the blue rod for the whole? Candace.
Because, because the blue rod is easy to divide into thirds.
Exactly. The blue rod, it has a length of 9 centimeters, so it can be easily divided into thirds. So if you were to give this to your students, you would have to give them the whole so that it would be easily done. You don't want them spending most of their time trying to figure out which one to use and waste all that time. Okay, why did I use the hexagon? Okay, I'll call Mary Lou. I called on you and you weren't here, so now Mary Lou?
Because it can divide nicely into 6 or thirds as well.
Good. You can divide nicely into 6 or thirds. So we're gonna skip this one and get to the, yeah, we're gonna skip that. So let's do this one. How many groups of 1/2 are needed to make 1 3/4? What do you think we should use in pattern blocks for the whole? Think about it first.
Oh, the dirt green. Oh, wait. I got it. Let's start. No, this is the start. So we can't use a hexagon. Well, we're gonna have to find a fourth. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. So that's 1. Did you know? No, well then this is 1. Okay, so then this would be 3/4. Yeah, because this would have to be divided into 4. Oh, okay. So, how many halves?
Can you divide it into half?
One, two, three.
Can you divide that into
That's what I think it is. Yes, 4 squares. So this is 1, 2, 3 and a half. Half. How many 1/2? Is that right? The rest of the world, it's a different story. How many halves is that?
Now we're back at our
Is that a half or? Yes. Yeah, that's it. Part of me wants to say half. Because you've got 1, 2, 3 halves. And half. 3 and 1/2.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Your left over basis.
Right. I'm being
One half of a half.
Well, we were trying to start with the whole one, 4 squares. And this can go in thirds. It's either 1 or 4s, and that means these are 8s.
So you can do this in 1/2. Show me 1/2.
Right.
That's your whole. So 1/2.
So that would make this 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because then that would mean by those we have 8s.
So then you would have to do another one. Then you have to go 1, 2.
Right. But that's what this is. This is a part of it.
Explain it to Rich.
Yeah, this is the whole. That's your 1.
Okay, I need your attention in 3, 2, 1. All right. So, it's going to explain to us what her group did. Okay, so we're going to listen to Maria.
Okay, so we have, so this was our hole. We have this as our hole, and then we used the red to make it up. So we had to do
What shape is that?
a hexagon and trapezoid. Trapezoid. Thank you. The red one and the yellow one. So then we figured out how many trapezoids we needed to do this. Actually, hold on. I'll get okay.
Show us
I
your
remember
1/2.
So we figured out this is gonna be nice, our 1/2 right here. And then we had to just make 1 3/4. So once we did our 1, we made 3/4, and then we figured out how many halves are in this whole situation right here. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then a remainder
Okay.
of one little trapezoid. So this would be considered a fourth, correct? And then
What's your whole?
our whole,
So what piece of the whole is that one trapezoid?
half,
One piece of
a
the
quarter.
whole? What'd you say? A quarter, yes. So how many 1/2s are needed to make 1 3/4? Let me draw a name. I feel like I call on the same people over and over again. Mary Lou, I got you again.
For how many groups of 1/2 are needed to make 1 3/4? We found out it was 3 1/2 groups of 1/2 are needed to make 1 3/4.
Very well said. 3 1/2 groups of 1/2 are needed to make 1 3/4. Does somebody get something different? Where did Melissa go? Because y'all used a different representation. Can you explain your representation, are you, Patricia?
Yes.
Yeah.
We use this as our whole.
Okay. They use 4 squares as a whole,
So half was 2 squares,
2 squares.
and then we did the 3/4 for 3 squares.
Okay.
So that's
So how many?
3 and 3
Three.
and 1/2.
And I heard a question mark at the end of
3
that.
and 1/2.
Okay, with an exclamation mark?
3 and 1/2.
And you're sure, Tim, that she's sure?
Yes, she's positive.
She's positive, okay. All right. Rochelle, you had a question?
Are you saying she's correct? With 3 1/2. With 3 1/4. Or 3 1/7. It's 3 1/4. See, that's the confusing
Oh, I'm sorry, I
part.
didn't catch that. Is it 3 1/2 or 3 1/4, Patricia?
3 1/4.
You sure?
Yes.
3 1/4. In math, we wouldn't say a quarter until later, you know, but right now, because we're young children, it's 3 1/4. Okay.
Excuse me,
Yes, ma'am.
question. So we're dealing with older children, but we have ELLs, so should we continue to use precise language?
What do y'all think?
Yes.
So we can't say a quarter
No, you should not say a quarter at this point,
or dot,
definitely.
Or
Or point.
dot or point.
Candace.
So the answer is 3 1/4 halves are needed to make 1 3/4.
Yes.
Ashley. See, this is where it's confusing me, is I've got 3 groups, 3 halves. And we use the same,
Using 4 squares for a whole,
but this is half.
half of what?
Half of the half, it was that group, so half of the half.
Wait, Ashley,
Well-
Ashley's talking, okay? It's half of what?
Half of 1/2, but it's half of the group that you want us to put them in.
I didn't tell you to put anything in a group, you did.
Well,
It's half of 1/2. Half of
Right.
1/2. So if you have half of 1/2, here, I'm gonna use the Ashley trick and draw, okay? If you have, and I'm gonna use just a rectangle, is that okay,
Yeah.
Ashley? I've divided that rectangle into
Right.
halves, okay?
Mhm.
And I want half of a half.
right.
How much of that rectangle is going to be half of a half?
Right, 1/4.
1/4.
Okay.
Make sense?
It does. I'm being difficult because whenever I see the halves, it's
You're not being difficult. This is probably the first time you've done it with these.
right.
And so it takes lots of practice. And your kids are going to be the same way. That's why that vertical language is so important. Teachers in lower grades have to start using these things so that by the time they get to the 4th or 5th grade, when they walk in and see pattern blocks, they're going to say, oh yeah, we've used those before. I know how to work with those.
Mhm.
Instead of coming in and saying, ooh, cool, I can make this and I can build a tower. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
The answer is still 3 1/2.
Is it 3 1/2?
Yes.
Okay, show me.
So for example, if we
With the pattern blocks.
Can we try the Elmo?
We, yeah.
Use the one that David.
Oh, can you use the Elmo hooked up? The ladies aren't in here.
No, it's not, but I was just thinking about how we could use another data projector and do that at the same time.
Hang on just a minute, Mary, we're gonna demonstrate it.
Do you have a dog? I've got my iPad.
I like those.
Can she use the Cuisinart rods instead?
I want it in pattern box right now, because that's where Ashley is.
Oh.
Pushing their bodies in here a little bit.
Brenda had those last summer. I don't understand the numbers. I still don't understand. I got we no, this is half. If this is one, and that's two, and that's three, then this is half. Because it's half of 1, 2, and 3. Right, but
So you can't make this half, this is a fourth.
if I'm gonna say 1 and 2. Okay.
So there's one fourth. So now you have half, and a fourth. So you have 3 halves of it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
That's where I get lost in that. That looks confusing because that last one is not part of the half. It's a fourth. Yeah.
It's part of the half. Right, but you're gonna say this is 1, and this is 2, this is 3. And that's
Okay, be sure that you have this problem in your head.
Excuse me, if I can have your attention, please.
Be sure that you have this problem in your head, because once we turn on the Elmo, this will not be up here. So we're looking for how many 1/2 does it take to make 1 3/4? So if you please write that down, write it in. How many 1/2 does it take to make 1 3/4?
I guess it is, are you talking about halves of the whole or halves of the halves?
well, that's the rub.
Right there. That is the question. Because I was like, yeah, it's a half.
It's a half of a half, which is a
If you're
fourth.
gonna tell me 3 halves, 1, 2, 3,
Half is a fourth. So-
Right, it's not a half, it's a fourth.
And I know what your goal is, ladies. It all boils down to what your
Right,
goal is.
and
You gotta
this is
keep
my
that in
goal.
your head.
yeah.
I've been in these, like, the White
And that's what this is.
This is your one, and that's your fourth.
I saw them using this one last year. When I came in December, I got this
But we didn't get the results with this one. I know, 'cause I was thinking the same thing. So basically, we still got to make the one. If we, yeah, just really. We kind of had to justify.
Hey, if you're talking to your partner, you should be still thinking about the problem.
It's about how many halves. Right. Not, so they answer 3 halves. And so it takes.
We've got our fractions.
I'll tell you what, while we're waiting, go ahead and put your rods up. because my time is almost up with meetings tomorrow. Bring your rods up, pattern rods up so you can see what you're doing.
Yes, ma'am.
But you were asking questions of Jen. Blueberry
Why are we taking our lessons? Why are you being stupid? Try it. At all. We certainly didn't sit down for breakfast together.
Oh, research system? What your administration they want you to do they got really upset because it's really just a matter of taking your discovery data, your assignments, and just copying and pasting. You're supposed to put in the units as a unit. Remember how before we were using day by day, but now they're moving towards a plan the unit. How many days do you think and pull stuff out? It depends. So you're going to be at a different campus. Your principal is completely different.
It takes 4 people to make it.
Well, here's your bag.
And lots of in several different districts.
Mary Lou, bring your box down just a little bit.
Okay, she's almost ready to explain this, y'all. Yeah. She's almost ready to explain her thinking. Okay, there's been a little bit of discussion over here about, the answer. We're not real sure it's 3 1/4, okay? So she's going to explain what she did, and then this will be the last thing we do. We will continue with this tomorrow. We have actually done about 1/3 thinking the fractions of the lesson for today, but that's okay, because we can take the time. All right, now you're on the right path. Go ahead, Mary Lou.
Okay, oranges will represent one whole.
Okay.
So for the part where how many groups of 1/2 are needed to make 1 3/4, since this is another whole, we know that our 3/4 will be this, so 1 3/4. And to represent 1/2 for a whole, we'll have this one piece represent a half. So we're trying to see, well, how many groups of these will it take to fit into our 1 3/4? So I'm gonna just show it on the bottom page. So we have one group. We have our second group here. We have our third group here. And then here's my fourth group. But the problem is that does not fit for that. So our fourth group is actually just, if this is my fourth group, this will be half of that one group.
Right,
So it'd be 3 and a half.
Yeah.
Half
Which
of
is
a half. If you say half of a half, then you also have to say 3 of a half. Because you're saying that this half of this half part, because it's how many groups of the 1/2. We're not bringing it down even more. So if you're saying a half of a half, then you also got to include all the 3 groups that you had before. 3 of that half and that half of a half that you're stating of, because you're now separating it into something else.
So what is your answer?
3 and a half groups of a half.
3
Of 1/2.
and 3 and
3 and 1/2 groups of 1/2 are needed to make 1 3/4.
Okay, so do we agree or disagree? Thumbs up if you agree. 3 and 1/2. Okay, thumbs down if you disagree. Sideways if you're really not sure. Okay, so,
the wording.
okay, can you explain it again?
So if we're going back to the wordings of what it is, so this represents one solid piece. So this is considered,
Wait, one solid piece of.
sorry, it's our group, or half, or 1/2.
Here's your whole, here's her whole.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, so what is this?
This is 1/2 of that whole.
That's 1/2 of the whole.
So you're not using the whole top part as considered.
Okay, this is the whole.
That's where I was reading.
Okay, so that's where they were confused. This is the 4 squares, that's the whole. Alright, and we wanna know how many halves it takes to make 1 3/4. So this is the 1 3/4. Alright, go ahead, Mary.
Oh, so kind of going back to the same scenario again, so if you had to consider that this is one whole and you have 1 3/4, you're trying to see, well, how many halves, because this would be half of the whole, so how many halves would you need in order to make this piece? So we're just looking at it as an image. So if I wish that these were colored. With the Cuisinart rods, it was actually a little bit easier to kind of see it because they're more solid and they're more forming. Whereas when you're thinking of this, you're like, oh, they split apart. But if you don't think that they split apart, you can say, okay, I can fit 2 halves into this hole. Is that correct? Yes. So you can fit 2 halves into that hole. And I'm gonna say, okay, can I fit 2 of these halves into this 3/4? No. I can fit 1 into that 3/4, but how many of this can I fit into that little piece there? Half of this half, not a quarter of the half, because that will split it, the orange, even more, because you guys are thinking of the 3, the 3 and 3 of these 1/2s, and then half of our 1/2, so half of our piece that we need. So that's why it's 3.
So we were going back to the whole.
The whole piece and kind of
and
splitting
cutting
it
off
up.
the-
Yes, because you guys are saying, okay, now that we have a half of the half, well, let's mix that together. But we're not splitting up the 1/2. The 1/2 represents something. So if you got rid of the word, if you said 1/2 of 1/2, that's 1/4. but then you're not considering it as its own group anymore. It's not part of that 1/2 that you were considering.
But when we start with 1 3/4, the 1 is 2 halves. So 1 is considered 2 halves.
Yes.
So,
We all agree.
okay,
Go on.
so you're asking how many? Because
How
it's
many
1
halves
3/4.
are needed to
Kim,
make
Kim,
one
let her
and
think
three
through it,
fourths.
Kim.
I see what you're trying to say,
Yeah,
cause like
'cause-
you have a fourth, you're making the 3/4.
Let's not interrupt her
Is
thought
it a half,
process.
right, is the last piece a half of the whole, or is it half of the? What's considered our whole, the one with the 4 pieces or the one with the 2 pieces? What's considered our 1? Because our 1 is the 4 pieces.
Now, this is important, okay, she's explaining it, Pam's working through it. She just said, what are we considering the whole?
Right.
What are we considering the whole? The 4 squares, that's the whole. But what part, what entity are we looking at to fit into the 1 3/4?
Halves.
Halves. We want to know how many halves will fit into 1 3/4. How many halves? Okay?
So, yeah, and she did a really good job of explaining if we took a fourth of that last half, it
A
would
half
be,
of a half, right.
it would be
And half of a half is a fourth.
Right, we're
Part of the whole.
Of a whole,
I wish we
right.
could draw on
Of the whole.
I know. But you're kind of saying, so what Rochelle was saying was that if you guys take half of the half and you were saying that the answer is 3 1/4, then